What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 45 of the Boochcast reviews, Darkside of the Ring, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by the one, the only, the broke soulless ginger, Mr. Zack Scott.
What's up, dude? That's just me, the broke soldier, Zack Scott. James Week, I'm not that broke. In today's episode, we're talking about the life and the career of Harley Race.
Yes.
You know what I noticed?
What?
He never smiles in his pictures. Not once.
Yeah, well, that's because Harley Race, that was his gimmick. He didn't smile because he wanted to be presented as a badass.
Yeah.
You know, and also if you were a heel, you didn't smile much. The babyface was the one that had to smile. You had to smile, you had to be upbeat, you had to be happy. It was how you sell yourself to the fans.
True.
As a babyface. If there's one man who connects wrestling's modern era to its earliest days, whose legacy in the squared circle stands as a monument to the evolution of the sport, and who epitomizes the ideal of a fighting champion, that man is Harley Race. Harley Race is wrestling personified. The man that when you mention the word has rewritten every book that has been wrote on it. Harley Race is a badass heel. He was no gimmick. That's who he naturally was. The toughest man on God's green earth. And that was a big deal back then because during his era, you had to be a tough guy in order to survive in wrestling. Even though technically it's not necessarily a business of tough guys because it is scripted and it is predetermined, but because back then it was so old school how you got broken into the business, as we talked about before and more about in this episode, back then you had to be tough in Harley Race's era.
Yeah.
That was an era of tough guys. Today, not so much.
Not at all, really.
Back then, you really had to be the toughest man on God's green earth in order to survive. Yes. And like I said, most people, when they think about wrestling, like the old school people, they think about Harley Race. You know, they go to Harley Race. They think of Ric Flair. They think of Dusty Rhodes. They think of Hogan. They think of a few other people. If a certain individual was joining the show with us, he'd have a lot to say about Harley Race.
Is that who I think it is?
Yes, Mr. Ginger, I have a lot to say about Harley Race. But sadly, I could not be here because I am not good with the scheduling. I kind of have a Roman Reigns type of career here on the Boochcast. Although the difference is when Roman's advertised, he actually shows up. That's kind of the difference. I'm going to get letters, I don't give a fuck.
No, you're just going to get a pissed off text message or a phone call.
I don't give a fuck. It needed to be said. He's been stabbed and shot at, but that's just because he was doing his job right. Because back then, they took the business seriously, like the fans. Because the wrestlers were so good, they had you believe in what you see in the ring. Again, that is a major issue that lacks in wrestling today, is believability. Making the fans believe. Making the fans so angry that they want to jump the guardrail and attack you.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they shouldn't.
Never jump the guardrail.
And we don't encourage it, but you should have that urge in your body when you see a heel. That's an effective heel, to make you want to jump the guardrail. Like you said, back then, fans didn't give a fuck. They would shoot you, they would stab you, they'd have blades in their hands and shit, or like knives and shanks, because back then, they didn't really pat people down at arenas. But back then, yeah, they would get attacked. Sometimes they had to have security walk certain wrestlers to the ring because fans would get that fucking crazy. A lot of wrestlers have stories about shit like that happening to them. One I won't talk about because it triggers Zach, but when a fan came at him with a knife and there was a cop that was sitting, like, you know, like there's that area where like wrestlers come out here and the fans are sitting up top, you can look over?
Yeah. There
was a cop that happened to be looking down who brought his son to the match and saw that guy about to stab that wrestler. And the cop leaped down, got on top of the guy, and quickly cuffed him. But he happened to have his stuff with him, even though he was off duty, and he quickly got the guy down and cuffed him, so nothing bad would happen to that wrestler. Harley Race has been wrestling all his life. He earned his first paycheck in wrestling before he got his driver's license. And this is another example of a lot of things you hear about old school wrestlers. They've been wrestling since they were 15 or 16 or 14. Some of them get in the business very, very young. Terry Gordy was an example. Roddy Piper was an example. I've heard CM Punk say he was 15 when he got in the business. Hell, I remember working an indie show with Buff. I met this kid who was 16. He had trained at Ricky Morton's school. And he'd been training since he was 12.
Wow.
So he was 4 years in the business at 16. And we watched this match because he was wrestling. I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember his opponent. It was Nathan Cross, who was one half of the New Age villains that I worked with over at UCW. And Nathan's one of the guys from UCW I'm still friends with. So whenever I see him, it's, hey, how you doing? What's up? You know, everything's great. And I saw that match, and that kid could work. I mean, there were a few things he could have improved on. You know, like he just needs to work on his psychology a little bit and things in that area. But as far as like the moves and the fundamentals, for a 16-year-old, holy shit. I looked at him like, are you sure you're 16? I'm like, yeah. He goes, have you been training since you were 12? He's like, yeah. He goes, awesome. Not bad. Like, he was really good. I mean, Nathan Cross is great too, but I'm talking about this 16-year-old kid was fucking great. So a lot of times, they start young in the business. Because back then, they didn't really care about age difference yet. Like, obviously, there's still places where you got to be a certain age to do certain things. But back in Harley's day, you could get away with underage anything. Literally anything. As Harley's violence spilled out of the ring, the line between person and persona became blurred. As a lifetime of tragedy and injuries took their toll on the man. From boating wrecks, to car accidents, to in-ring accidents, and a land full of tough guys, he was considered the king tough guy.
And his first ring name at 18 was Jack Long.
Jack Long?
Yeah, that's what it says on Wikipedia.
All right. At the end of his career, he had 2 rods and 8 screws in his back, an artificial hip, 4 metal screws in his right knee, and 2 braces, and 12 pins in his left arm. So, yeah, Harley Race literally paid the price in the ring. That was at the end of his career. That's what he had to have to sustain every injury he ever got.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's basically more metal than man at this point. Yeah. Don't put him through a metal detector. He's getting cavity searched every time.
Cavity check.
Yep. Harley had a reputation not only for being a badass that can deliver a beating, but also being a badass that can take a beating. He was among the first wrestlers to take backdrops onto the concrete floor, suplexes outside of the ring, table spots, going full speed and face first over the top turnbuckle, and getting his arms tied up in the ropes. So Harley was the first to do all those things. And I've seen a few of those spots in like earlier WCW pay-per-views, during the classic pay-per-views, and those are painful as fuck.
Yeah, you just look at it like, ow, that has to hurt.
And I think Harley Race did that to Kevin Von Erich in the Iron Claw movie, if I'm not mistaken, the backdrop to the floor.
Yeah, he did. I did see that, and then Kevin landed wrong kind of too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was able to get in before he kind of knocked.
Yeah,
but
barely.
And the way the movie was set up, I couldn't tell if that was a work or if he was selling or if that was a shoot. It looked like a shoot.
It looked like a shoot. Were they supposed to get disqualified if they go over the top rope?
In some cases, yes.
But they didn't disqualify him.
Either the referee didn't see it or World Class did something different.
Okay.
Maybe World Class was different, I don't know. But even in the early 90s of WCW, going over the top rope was still considered disqualification.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was a matter of, did you throw the guy over the top rope? That can also be a thing.
I hear you.
Like, if you just go over the top rope, that's on you. But if I physically grab you and throw you over the top rope, that's disqualification. But if you run at me and I pull the rope down and you just happen to go over me, that's your fault. That was your momentum. I didn't touch you.
Yes, that's true.
So the backdrop might get away with it,
Yeah.
but it was mostly about throwing the person over. Because going over the top's supposed to hurt.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they got rid of that later on. And the Royal Rumble made it a thing, a regular thing, getting thrown over the top rope. One of his major wrestling moves was the diving headbutt. He delivered the move by coming off the middle rope and landing head-to-head with the opponent on the ground. It looked devastating, but he was barely touching them. So again, that's a key thing about old school wrestling as well, is you make a move look devastating, but you're not actually causing damage. That's the difference. And that's the problem with modern wrestling today, is they're actually hurting each other in that ring. They're not doing moves safely. Safety is not their number one priority. It's their number one problem. So, like Hogan one time said to Joe Rogan, he told the story about how when the NWO attacked The Rock, Hogan took that hammer and hit The Rock in the back of the head. So Joe's like, Jesus Christ, you hit him with a hammer? He goes, no, brother, you don't understand. If I had a hammer right now, I could hit you with it, you wouldn't even feel it, man. I could do it in a way to where it doesn't hurt you. There's a way to work a weapon to where it doesn't hurt somebody. And that's the key thing. You made the person think they were really hurt, but they weren't. Now, people think they're not really hurt, but they are. That's the problem. The working aspect, that aspect is dead in wrestling practically.
Yeah, very much.
one of the fiercest men to ever lace a pair of boots. Harley Race was a wrestler's wrestler who began his journey to the ring as a teenager. He grew up poor on a farm in Missouri. He would let kids at school punch him in the stomach as hard as they could, and he wouldn't even flinch. He would play hooky from school with his friend Daniel, and they would wrestle because they were huge wrestling fans. And, you know, they grew up liking Bob Brown, Sonny Myers, Yukon Eric.
I never heard of those guys.
I haven't either. That's
like,
old. That's
like
old
grandma
school.
and grandpa old right there.
Exactly.
I was like, who the hell are these guys? Maybe,
Yeah.
probably even Gator probably wouldn't even know.
If he does, it's probably because his grandfather might have told him.
Yeah.
But, you know, these are like real
And
old school.
how much of a obsessive factor does Gator have over Harley Race?
Not as big as Flair, but
Or big as Terry Funk?
But he likes it because it's old school. You see, he's old school. This is the Southern wrestling.
Love
the
Southern wrestling, the real
pro wrestling. This is real wrestling.
But the guys don't look, they look like they have a beard cut, not a six pack.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get crap.
And most of them are cowboys. They got called into the principal's office. He said, "Why did you guys leave school?" Harley said, "It was a good day to wrestle." I like it. He just wanted to wrestle, so we left and we went and we wrestled each other. Right? I love how he's honest about that. It was a good day to wrestle.
Yeah, that's true.
Harley was part of the fuck around and find out era. The principal slapped him in the face for a smart-ass comment, and Harley responded by knocking him out. Yeah, back then you could do shit like that.
Nah, not so much.
Nah.
No.
No. Today, if you're a teacher or a principal, the only way you get away with that is if the student swings on you first.
That's true.
And you're defending yourself, and that's one thing. Or maybe in the Catholic schools, they might still have the nuns that discipline with the rulers and stuff.
I don't know.
They used to do that. We actually learned that when I was in New York. We actually went to like this small Catholic school on like a field trip or something, and she would explain how they would put out your hands and as they hit your knuckles with the ruler, or sometimes they would have the paddle and you would have to assume the position and they paddle you and shit.
Jesus.
You were fully clothed, but it still hurt.
Yeah.
But they would tell you like that was how they disciplined in school, like, and that's the thing. Fuck around and find out. See, that's an era that I miss.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, there are people who fuck around, but because of how PC and fucked up the world is today, they never find out.
That's true.
See, I'm a fuck around and find out kind of guy.
Same here.
See, that's who I am. If you fuck around with me, you're going to find out. If you don't want to find out, don't fuck around. That's who I am. I'm sorry. I'm too old to put up with dumb shit.
Yeah, same here.
I can't tolerate
It's not we
stupid
go
shit.
out of way looking for fights. It's like, no. That's why I don't go to bars anymore. You see somebody get into a fight. It's like, I don't want to get into a fight. But I enjoy watching a good bar fight. You know what I call that, Mr. Vinabucci? Dinner and a show.
He left home when he was 14 because his parents couldn't afford to keep him up. He got a job on a farm out in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, that just happened to be owned by the Zabisco brothers, Stanislaus and Valdek. I'm probably trying to pronounce these right. They were iconic names in the business, and when Harley found out they were wrestlers, he offered to work on the farm in exchange for them training him. So that was basically going to be his fee. Hey, I'll work on your farm if you train me to be a wrestler, rather than paying him money. He's a kid, what the fuck's he gonna do with money? And if he's living on the farm, I'm assuming they're gonna feed him.
Yeah, of course.
I'm assuming. So there you go. And he got them to train him to be a wrestler. They would stretch him, beat him up, and put him in holds he couldn't escape from to see if he was tough enough to come back and ask for more. Because in their generation, a professional wrestler, they knew the other guy had the ability to grab one of their appendages and break it instantly. It was the most primitive form of hand-to-hand, man-to-man combat. This proved useful to him when he started working the carnivals. So again, like we said last week, they're beating him up to see if he's tough enough to handle it. Because that's what they do in the beginning. They try to see if you really want this before they start to really train you.
Yeah.
Then it's like, all right, now we're going to teach them some moves, and then eventually they're going to smarten you up and go, okay, here's how the business is really done. This is scripted, it's a work, and you're working with the other person. You're not trying to kill them. But they also want you to be able to protect yourself in case some psycho wants to take liberties with you. So the Zabisco brothers trained Harley Race.
Yes.
Taught him the inner workings of the business. And that's when he would go and work the carnivals. Because in the beginning of wrestling, when this era of professional wrestling, this type of professional wrestling was first created, it started in the carnivals before it branched out to territories and where it is today. It started in the carnivals. It used to be a carnival event you see in the carnival, like when you would go to the carnival and you would ride the rides and get cotton candy and come see the bearded lady and the one-eyed monster and...
Some weird motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah. In the carnivals, he would make $3 or $4 a match, which is chump change either way, but that's the carnivals for you. They don't pay much.
Everything back in those days cost a nickel and a dime.
Yeah, so you gotta understand that. The era he's in, you know. The big tent would have a champion wrestler, and anyone that could last 5 minutes in the ring with him won a cash prize. So basically, this is kind of like Spider-Man, when you saw the Cage come in, and Bonesaw raised his head and he goes, "You ain't going nowhere. I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime." That's what it was about. Like, can you last 5 minutes in the ring with this champion? And if you make it, you get a cash prize. Especially if you win. They had truck drivers, farmers, and butchers get in the ring and challenge him. The matches were shoots, but if no one in the crowd would step up, they would have a plant in the crowd to go in and work a match. So they had somebody there to work a match with him if nobody got in the ring, which is a key thing you want to do. You want to have a plant in case no one volunteers. If no one volunteers and there's no plant, well, then the wrestler's just sitting there. And he either has to say a bunch of shit to get you to jump in the ring, or just fucking stand there and be like, not doing anything. So the plant would work, which is good because here's the thing. Obviously, if you're the wrestler, you want to get in, get out, and beat the guy. But if you're menacing and you're too dominant, no one's going to get in the ring because they're scared of you. So with the work, at least the guy can make him think, oh, the champion's going to lose, this guy's going to win, and then the last second, beat the guy. It's kind of like how during the U.S. Open Challenge, when someone would beat down on John Cena, and then all of a sudden Cena out of nowhere would outsmart them, hit the attitude adjustment, get the 1, 2, 3, and that was it. So Cena was just the wily veteran using his brain to outsmart the other guy. But he would make you think the other guy's going to beat him. That's the key thing. Or if you're doing an arm wrestling contest, you kind of like lean back a little bit, kind of make the guy think he's going to win, and then when the time is right, boom, slam his ass. The plant would look like the locals. And Harley played that role numerous times. So Harley would be the plant because he was still training. He wasn't ready to be the champion in the ring yet. He wasn't about that life yet. So he would be the plant that the champion would work with and look like he's going to get the upper hand and the champion would beat him. So Harley knows if he's in the ring with the champion, he's jobbing every time. But in the other matches, when he's working the preliminary matches, he would probably either go over or job, depending on the situation. But he would always job to the champ. Eventually he became the champion and would learn to take shortcuts like the headbutt to the bridge of the nose or the double wrist lock to get the win. Because if he lost, he didn't get paid. He would wrestle 5 or 6 strangers every day. So every day it'd be about 5 or 6 people getting in that ring. So if it looks like, oh my God, you're going to lose, do that headbutt to the nose or get that quick submission hold in to make the guy tap out. Because that's the thing. You didn't get paid if you lost. You know why?
Right.
Your pay went to the guy who won the cash prize.
There you go.
So I had to give out a cash prize so you don't get paid. You embarrassed my show. Fuck you. And then, of course, on the carnival circuit, Harley goes to work for legendary promoter Gus Carras, who puts Harley on the road with one of the biggest men in the history of the wrestling business, Happy Humphrey. He weighed over 700 pounds, and Harley was hired as his driver, valet, and attendant. They drove an especially built Cadillac, and he had to make sure all of Humphrey's needs were met after the matches, including bathing him. So basically, if Humphrey wanted something to eat, Harley had to get him something to eat. If Humphrey wanted to go get some beer, Harley had to go get him his beer. So Harley was the guy that took care of all of Humphrey's diva-like demands. If you had to take him to a gas station to get coffee and Black and Milds, he fucking did it. So that was Harley Race's job, and he was very good at his job. So Humphrey would lay on the ground naked, and Harley would take a bottle of liquid soap, a mop, and a garden hose, and basically clean Happy Humphrey off, then get back in the car and go to the next town without enduring the unending disaster of B.O. Harley Race paying his dues in the wrestling business. Which is weird because you never hear this story come up. In all the Harley Race documentaries and all the Harley Race things I've seen, they never mention this.
No, they do not.
Which I thought would have been a much better story.
Maybe you thought it a little too embarrassing.
In 1960, at just 17 years of age, Harley marries a single mother named Vivian Jones, who is soon pregnant with Harley's first child. Then tragedy quickly strikes. At 3 a.m., they're driving down a snowy road, and a tractor-trailer truck in front of them jackknifes and gets into a snowbank. Harley's car rams into the truck, and his wife is killed instantly from a head injury. Harley was severely injured to the point where they thought he was dead too, until someone saw him move. They were going to amputate his leg and told him he'd never walk again. Holy shit.
That was sad.
Imagine that, dude.
Yeah.
You're 17, you're married, You're marrying a woman who already has a child. She's pregnant with your child and dies from a head injury. So like, not only do you lose your wife, you're going to lose that baby. And since you two are married, are you now responsible for her kid? You're now a stepdad to that kid. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you now assume custody of this kid, or if her dad's in the picture, then he gets that kid. Which would be the smart way to go, considering Harley is a wrestler. No disrespect to Harley Race, but you're a wrestler on the road. Going with the biological dad is the better choice, and is the logical choice is the biological dad. You know what I'm saying? So that has to suck. You marry the love of your life and she dies.
Yeah.
Because keep in mind, he didn't cheat on her, they didn't get divorced, she died.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, this is horrible. A car accident on Christmas Eve has killed Harley Race's pregnant wife. Yeah, so her and the kid are gone. Somehow Harley is holding on, but concerned doctors want to amputate his leg. Gus shows up at the hospital and convinces the doctors not to amputate the leg.
Over his dead body.
Literally. Like, we're not amputating this leg because you amputate the leg, that's your career gone. Back then, at least. Because back then, there was no Zach Gowans that could get away with that. Because back then, they didn't have prosthetic limbs and stuff. They had the metal shit. Like the magic legs Lieutenant Dan had.
Magic legs.
Exactly. Instead, they do surgery to fix it, and eventually he was able to walk again and save his career. However, he would become a hater of Christmas for the rest of his life.
Don't blame him.
I don't either. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
When that's your memory of Christmas.
Your wife died, your kid died, you almost lost your leg. Yeah, fuck Christmas.
Exactly. Hell, I was a hater of Christmas for a while.
I still am, but
I
that's
had-
more personal.
I had 3 Christmases in a row that sucked. First was when, Grandma got put in the home because she was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Second, she died.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third Christmas, I got let go by the regular guys. So yeah, I was in a fuck Christmas mode for a long time.
Yeah,
I started to like it again eventually over time, but they weren't Merry Christmases.
Nope.
At all. Several years after the crash, as Harley continues his wrestling career, a chance encounter introduces a new woman to his life, Ivana Ebevany.
Do you think you said that right?
I definitely said it wrong. I definitely said that wrong. Was a flight attendant. He offered to take her out for blueberry pie. Eventually they get married.
Blueberry pie and coffee.
Yeah.
That ain't old school. I don't know what is.
It is. Like, hey, would you like blueberry pie? And here's the thing. That was a date back then.
Yeah.
Try that today.
Yeah, try that today. The girl look at you and start laughing.
But yeah, Harley Race likes to get married. I learned that. That's what I love about a lot of these old school guys.
They've been
They
married.
love to get married.
And the marriages usually don't last that long.
Yeah. Although in Harley's case, the first one ended on blood.
Oh, no.
So I think we can give him a pass on that.
You get to pass on that one.
Yeah. Marrying Ivana, despite her parents' wishes, Harley gets back in the ring. He teams up with Larry Hennig, who goes by the nickname Pretty Boy, while Harley goes with Handsome. They have bleach blonde hair, which helped them get heat with the fans.
Yep.
Harley loved being a heel, but his wife hated watching him get booed. She would also ask Harley if the match was going to be clean or a bloodbath. If it was going to be a bloodbath, she would take their son Justin to a movie or mini golf. So basically, if Harley was going to get color, she would not bring the kid to the show. Because I don't want my son seeing blood.
Yeah.
He's a young kid. And I get that. That's actually why WWE, for the most part, takes blood out of their matches. So it's more kid-friendly. So they try to limit the blood.
Or they do AEW and they have too much blood.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a fine line with blood. Blood is used to enhance a story, not just to make something look real. Like, for example, when Cody bled, when The Rock beat the shit out of him and then threw him into the bus. That's where the blood worked. Because The Rock said, I'm going to put your blood on this belt, and then I'm going to hand it to Mama Rhodes, and her tears are going to be on it. So he's like, I'm going to take my son out. Now, if the match was going to be no blood, she would take her kid. Because it wasn't the violence that made her uncomfortable. It was the blood. She understands that wrestling is barbaric. And she's fine with that. But I'm not going to let my kid see his dad gushing with blood because it would terrify them. And if you think that's a lie, go watch Beyond the Mat and see the scared look on Foley's kids when he bleeds in that match with The Rock. Touring arenas, sports halls, and bars across America, Harley's status as a legitimate tough guy is frequently put to the test. Harley sees a guy harassing a woman in the front row and grabs him, but then the guy's friend stabs him in the back 3 times. They took off and Harley went to the hospital. Harley found out where the guy lived and did a drive-by shooting at his house with a machine gun.
Not a pistol, a machine gun. Went out there and literally emptied an entire clip. If what it saw the Darkside of the Ring, it looked like an AK-47. In those times, it probably would have been most likely a Tommy gun for what the gangsters used or something. Because I don't think AK-47s were around that time.
Probably not, but I don't think they can actually find the machine gun. So they were just using an AK-47 for the reenactment.
Yeah, because that's the most used rifle.
But yeah, we gotta remember that when Darkside of the Ring does their reenactments, they're meant to enhance the story, but they're not like an accurate portrayal of what happened. Because they don't know, because there's no like home movie footage of it.
Yeah, that's true. I was like, Jesus Christ. Damn, dude. Alright, don't piss off Harley Race. He'll come up and shoot up your house. Psychopath.
Really? They stabbed him in the back 3 times. I think this is warranted. But yeah, he took him out with a machine gun. Like, you'll die, motherfucker.
What?
I'll take you off to fucking hell. Say hello to my little friend. As Harley's legend grows, so does his busy schedule, keeping him on the road for days and even weeks at a time. Not surprising. He was a good father, but he was only home 3 times a month. He would drink and drive. When his first wife died, he was driving only 30 miles an hour and hasn't driven slow since. If the speed limit was 70, he'd go 90. Cops would pull him over, and when they found out it was him, they just let him go.
You idiot, I didn't have to end. Never mind. Walks away.
Sir, let me see your license. Oh, Harley Race.
How you doing, man?
Damn. Can you sign this autograph? Hold on. Is that a ticket? No. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Because I know Buffy used to tell stories like back in the day when he was in WCW. He would literally sign 8x10s for cops, and they would just let him go. So he only be home 3 times a month. And again, this is the difference. He was a good father. He didn't beat his kid. He didn't mistreat his kid. He loved his kid with all his heart. It's just that, again, he's a professional wrestler, which means he's constantly on the road.
He's on the road.
That's the thing. He's away from the house, but he's not a bad parent. When he was home, he was dad, spent time with his kid. Just, he had to travel to make his living.
That's true.
And that's the price you pay when you live with an entertainer. They travel. Now, sometimes they get to the point in their career they don't have to travel as much. But in that beginning, they're on the grind. Whether it's a wrestler, whether it's a musician, whether it's a comedian. They gotta travel to earn their living. And that's the price they pay. A rising star across the territories with his tag team partner Larry Hennig, Harley Race emerged as a singles competitor after Hennig breaks his leg, setting the stage for a legendary run. So during this time, he's in the tag team with Larry Hennig.
Yep.
And they're having a great time on the road, great tag team. Yeah. They have a lot of success. But then once Larry gets injured, this is where Harley Race is about to become the Harley Race that we all know. Yeah. So now he's getting that big break because his partner's out of the commission. And sometimes, that's the one disadvantage of being a tag team, is sometimes if the tag team partner gets injured, depending on who you are, you might get a singles push. But there's some cases where if a tag team partner gets injured, the other partner is usually sitting at home because there's not much they can do with them because you're only known for being in the tag team. And you can't break away from it. That's the sad part. When a tag partner goes down, it can hurt both people's careers.
That's true.
He gets brought into the NWA, and though the NWA title changed hands in the ring, the champion was actually chosen by committee and selected for their popularity, trustworthiness, and ability to protect themselves if a match goes off script. So, if you saw the movie Iron Claw, you're familiar with this concept. Like, that was the thing that Fritz Von Erich always talked about, because he wanted to be the NWA World Champion. But the committee would never choose him. So that's why he was hoping one of his sons would get it. And also, that's why when you hear them talk a lot about the NWA title and bringing the title in and why it's such a big deal, you're probably thinking, well, Fritz is the promoter, why doesn't he just book it to go over? Because the champion is chosen by committee. The committee determines who's going to be champ, and they base it on this criteria. Your popularity, how much the crowd loves or hates you, whether they can trust you with the belt, like you're not going to no-show, you're not going to show up in condition not to perform, you're not going to be unprofessional. They want to know they can trust you. And of course, if a match goes off script, can you protect yourself? Like if you're supposed to go over and someone decides to go into the business for themselves, can you defend yourself and still win the match or get a disqualification or something happen? In 1973, Dory Funk Jr. was the world champion. Originally, they considered giving the belt to Jack Briscoe, But the committee, particularly Dory Funk Sr., didn't want him to lose to another babyface. They felt it was better to lose to a heel, so they go with Harley Race, who was a noted heel, a rule breaker, and a cheater. So again, he embodied the heel 101. Breaking rules, cheating, knowing when to cheat and how to cheat properly, establishing yourself as hated. Harley Race was a great heel.
Very good heel.
And that's why he was able to get this, because they felt like, okay, you shouldn't lose to another babyface.
Yeah, that makes sense. For the good guy to lose to the bad guy.
So the bad guy can have the run with the belt, and then eventually the babyface can take it from him.
Yep.
But also a guy who, if it came down to it, if there was no cooperation, would be able to legitimately take the World Heavyweight Championship in the ring. So they knew Harley was that tough of a guy. Where again, if Dory decided to go into business for himself and decides, I'm not going to lose the belt, Harley Race is like, oh yes the fuck you are, and beat him to a bloody pulp and take the belt. He was wrestling 1 hour matches a night, and established that you have to be a tough son of a bitch to hold that title. So this is where he's establishing his toughness, and he's having 1 hour matches. And this is back when 1 hour matches weren't always the standard.
No, not at all.
Before Iron Man matches were a thing.
Yeah.
This was him in 1 hour matches in the ring, and he was doing it every night. So this is how he developed a reputation for being tough and also having good endurance. Because you need all of that to go an hour in the ring. Even if you're slow pacing it, it's still going to get tiresome after a while. And that's the secret to 1 hour matches, is the pacing. That's why you can't have a 1 hour spot fest.
Yeah,
you'll blow up quick. That's why you notice with like matches that are 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, they're a little high spotty, they move around really fast, there's fast pace, there's chain wrestling. With an hour match, there's none of that.
None of that at all.
There's tie-ups, there's force in the corner, break. Sometimes the guy rolls out of the ring, regroups. They stretch the time out. It's like, hey, we don't have to get too crazy. We got an hour. We build to that. And as the match progresses, then you start chain wrestling and throwing in the high spots and doing all the crazy shit. And then really amp it up when you get closer to the 1 hour. As an 8-time NWA champion, he was 8-time champ, Harley Race took on all comers, establishing his reputation as the most fearsome man in the business. He was also so important to the Central States territory in Kansas City that he bought into the territory and owned part of the promotion. So he now owns part of the Kansas City territory. The NWA World Champions Road schedule is considered the most grueling schedule in all of wrestling. He traveled to multiple territories with multiple promotions run by multiple promoters in many different countries. Friday he wrestled in Japan. Saturday he was in Kansas City. And Sunday he was in Puerto Rico. All 3 were 1 hour matches.
Jesus Christ.
In 1983, the NWA decides Harley Race will lose his championship to Ric Flair at a massive event branded Starrcade. The tagline was, "A Flair for the Gold." So this is Starrcade 1983. The match is meant to mark a generational changing of the guard, but rival promoter Vince McMahon has other ideas. Just hours before the NWA's massive Starrcade event, Vince McMahon meets in secret with champion Harley Race in an attempt to sabotage the show. He offers him $250,000 to no-show Starrcade and come to the WWE. Harley says, hell no, I'm not going to do that. I gave my word. Vince, in a fit of rage, tries to leg dive Harley and take him down. Harley puts him in a front face lock, hooks his arms, and stands up with him. Vince gets choked out, and Harley drops him on the floor. Gee, where have we heard this before, Zach?
Oh, I don't know. Why don't you let the world know?
Vince McMahon, you poor little jungle boy. You know how many times we've seen front face lock stories lately?
A lot.
Turns out Punk's not the only one who thought of this.
And he turned down $250,000. Back then, that's a lot of fucking money.
And Vince had it.
Yeah, he did. What he should have done is like, how about this? I go do this, I lose the title, then I come work for you. That's how you do business.
That would have been a proper way to do business. And you know what's really hilarious to me?
What?
Is when I worked for UCW, we had a similar story like this. Here's the thing. I quit UCW 3 times before I finally left the promotion for good. The first time I quit was after a show in Barnesville. In fact, you can't see it, but this poster over here was the event. I don't show it on camera because one of the few UCW shows that I'm ashamed that I was ever a part of. Mostly because of the behind-the-scenes drama that went into this fucking show. And I'll tell the story. This is what happened. What had happened was, we were invited, and by we, I mean me and Voldemort, to meet with the Barnesville Police Department. The Barnesville Police Department heard that what UCW does when they put on shows is a portion of the proceeds goes to the sheriff's office and stuff to raise money for youth programs. Barnesville Police hears about this, and wants to get in on it. Hey, we'll get a portion of the proceeds and work out what that is, because they also understand, look, we got to pay talent, we got to do all this other stuff, but from the paying we get from the gate, a portion of it goes to them. So the problem with this is there was another promotion in Barnesville, I think they still run today, called WrestleMerica. Now, one thing about indie promotions is they kind of run like the territories. In other words, you don't run in someone else's town. Normally that's how it goes.
That makes sense right there.
So you try not to run another person's town. But here's the thing. In this case, we're getting an invitation from the police department. They're inviting us, asking us to do business. So we were like, all right, let's do it. So I remember being in a car with Voldemort, and we're talking. And he says, you know, what should we do about WrestleMerica? My suggestion was, let's partner up with them. That way it doesn't seem like we're running in your territory. I said, explain to them, hey, the Barnesville Police Department's asking us to run a show. We want to help them raise money for their youth program. Will you partner up with us and split everything down the middle? The revenue, the costs, everything. Work with whoever's running WrestleMerica. I can't remember I don't know who's currently running it. I know it used to be Luke Gallows before he went back to WWE, so he's no longer running that company anymore. And I know there was a guy named Marty Miller who I think runs Hope Championship Wrestling now, but I know he was part of WrestleMerica when I worked there. Because I also did commentary for WrestleMerica. I've worked shows for them too. So I knew both these promotions, and I had friends in both these promotions, which Voldemort did not like. But I'm sorry, I did have friends there. So from what Voldemort told me, so I'm taking this with a grain of salt, he had spoken to WrestleMerica about partnering up, and WrestleMerica decided, no, they didn't want to partner up, but they wanted to run a show on the same day. So now we're finding out both these shows are running the same day. And Voldemort is not happy. So he is determined to get WrestleMerica shut down. I have never seen him more determined to shut something down in my life. All he would do is bitch about WrestleMerica time and time again. And what the Barnesville Police Department and everyone else is trying to say is, dude, let it go. Just run the show. Let's do the business we want to do. I don't care about these guys. But of course, Voldemort's the type of person where if he hates somebody, he expects everyone on his team to hate that same person. It's like, if I hate this person, we all hate this person. I'm like, I don't have a problem with these people. I'm not getting involved in this shit. But of course, his thing was not picking a side is picking a side. You're on my team or you're not. And I was on his team until after this show, and then I was off the first time. So anyway, this whole drama, I'm experiencing all of this. And then it starts getting personal. Like, the promoters start attacking each other. They start bringing families into it. They start making this a real personal thing. And it gets to the point where this becomes less about putting on a show and more about putting out the other person. So Voldemort stacks the card with an insane number of wrestlers. Like, I'm talking insane number. Like, to the point where it's out of control, we didn't have money to cover a lot of shit, and a lot of drama went down. Anyway, I tell this long story to get to this point right here. So, a week before the two shows, we were doing a comedy night, like a talk show comedy thing, to promote the show. And Tyson Dean was there as the WrestleMerica heavyweight champion. He's the champion of WrestleMerica. Voldemort was there to promote the UCW show. And after the show was over, we're all in the parking lot. Now, the WrestleMerica champion, Tyson Dean, who is a friend of mine, Tyson was wrestling at the WrestleMerica show. Now, Tyson had worked for UCW once before at a show, so he's familiar. I actually recommended that Voldemort bring him in because I know how talented Tyson Dean is. So Tyson's talking to everybody outside. Tyson's cool, you know? He doesn't really pick sides, anything like that. So I'm in the parking lot watching Voldemort try to convince Tyson Dean to no-show the WrestleMerica show and come to the UCW show. And I watch him beg, I watch him make offer after offer. He's really trying to sway him to do this. And Tyson's kind of like laughing because the offer's really good. But Tyson said, look, man, I can't do that. It's bad business. Basically what Harley said. I gave my word. I'm the champ. I got to do this. If you want to book me for a show in the future, I'll happily come work with you, but I can't do it. And he was,
right now, it wouldn't be right.
And he was professional, he was respectful, and everything was good. The second Voldemort and I get in the car, he is fucking furious. And all I hear him say is, he is now our enemy. What do you mean our enemy? What the fuck? Like, now he's done, don't want to work with this guy, literally wanted me to block people on my Facebook page. Are you out of your mind? Like, that's when it got really toxic. Like, I'm not the type of person that's going to hate somebody just because you do. I judge people based on one thing and one thing only, and that's how you treat me. Even when I've had feuds with people, I don't tell people to pick sides.
Nope.
I don't. You can make that decision on your own. The only way I would force somebody to pick sides or not be friends with somebody that's friends with somebody I hate is if I feel like you're telling my business to that person, then I will disown you. But other than that, no. Just, if I don't want to be around somebody, I'm going to say, keep that motherfucker away from me. I don't care what you do with him, but keep him away from me. That's all I ask.
That seems legit.
Yeah. So I watched this unfold. So literally when I saw this moment, it made me think back to Voldemort and Tyson Dean. But also, again, like the CM Punk Jack Perry situation, the front face lock, and like the Hulk Hogan Richard Belzer situation, Vince goes limp and Harley drops him. Just like how Hogan dropped Belzer. So you tried to double leg Harley Race? Vince, are you out of your fucking mind?
I think he was. Or he was just in a fit of rage.
Well, that's the thing. Vince McMahon, people act like he wasn't one of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
He was to an extent. Like, he still had that boss mentality. He kept certain people on his lane. But if you were a top guy, he would hang out with you. Vince liked to pull ribs on people and would fuck with certain wrestlers if he liked them, if they were in his inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, Vince is a psycho. You have to be psycho sometimes when you work in the business.
It's true.
Vince's failure to persuade Harley to leave the NWA and join the WWE isn't McMahon's only attempt to take over Harley's Kansas territory. Vince starts running shows in other territories, which pissed off promoters, but none of them got in Vince's face. Harley did. WWE comes to Kansas City and Hogan is working the main event. Harley goes over to the building with a pistol to confront Hogan. He couldn't find him, so he lit the ring on fire. Yeah, Harley Race does not fuck around.
Harley Race, I heard him say, he's put the ring on fire. I'm going like, hey, I mean, barricading the doors or make sure people can't in, but setting the ring on fire. Like,
Well, if you don't have a ring, you can't have a show.
no, you cannot.
You break doors down.
Yeah.
You could eventually get into a
What
building.
are they supposed to do? Do a fall counts anywhere match? Come on now, you need a ring.
You do need a ring. You can't have wrestling without a ring.
Kind of like football needs a football field, baseball needs a baseball field, and basketball needs a basketball court.
Well, basketball, you just need a hoop.
True.
You don't necessarily need the court, you just need the hoop. Football, you just need grass. It may not be a football field, but if you got one backyard to another backyard, that can be football. But he was going to go there with a pistol and shoot Hogan. Because back then, Hogan was also running in these territories with Vince. That's why they said Hogan and Vince took over together. Because Hogan was the star that Vince sent to other territories to wrestle. Despite Harley's best efforts to ward off Vince's invasion, the WWE's nationwide expansion cannot be stopped. Vince eventually buys him out and offers him a job, but he felt he was too plain and that the fans want to see color and character and ice cream bars. So that's when they make him the King of the Ring, long before the pay-per-view becomes a thing. He becomes the King Handsome Harley Race. He may not have liked the gimmick, but he never bitched about it. Whatever you gave him, he tried to make it work. He was there to make a paycheck and take care of his family. Now, do we see the point here, children?
You think they see the point, Vinny?
I don't know. Zach, do they?
Maybe.
That second to last sentence?
Yeah.
Read again.
Whatever you gave him, you try to make it work.
What was that?
Whatever you gave him, you try to make it work.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
Whatever you gave him, you try to make it work.
One more time for the people in the back.
Whatever you gave him, he tried to make it work.
Yes, whatever you gave him, he tried to make it work. He didn't bitch. He didn't complain. He tried to make it work. And that's what you're supposed to do because it's your job. So he's like, I'm trying to earn a paycheck. I'm trying to take care of my family. That's how wrestlers, real wrestlers, viewed the business. They didn't view it as a playground. They didn't view it as a hobby. They didn't view it as something they do for silly and fun time. They did it to earn a paycheck and take care of their families. They feed their families with wrestling. That's why when you shit upon the business, it makes them angry. Because when you make a mockery of the business, people don't take it seriously. People don't take it seriously, people don't buy tickets and come out. When they don't buy tickets and come out, they can't make their money. So that's why when you disrespect their business, you get front face locked. But Harley's time in the WWE is cut short by an injury, ironically, while in the ring with champion Hulk Hogan, the guy he wanted to shoot and kill.
Oh, yeah, this situation, this pissed me the fuck off right here.
There's an 8-foot table at ringside. Harley sets Hogan up on the table, and Harley goes for the diving headbutt off the apron, and Hogan moves out of the way, as he was supposed to. That was the planned spot. Hogan was supposed to move out of the way, and Harley missed him to the table. The metal bar that goes underneath it was bent down and not broken. The metal bar came up and hit him in his lower abdomen just below the belly button and blew out his lower intestines, creating a big hole or rupture.
Ow. Aren't they supposed to remove the metal bar out from under the table?
I think so.
And then they didn't, and it fucking totally could have fucking killed Harley almost.
Yeah.
And they almost fucking did.
After suffering an internal injury during a move gone wrong, the future of Harley Race's career is in doubt. when he's found on the floor of his son's apartment. He was rushed to the hospital where the doctors discovered he had an abdominal hernia. It required multiple surgeries to fix the damage, and it significantly hampered the rest of his wrestling career. He dropped 100 pounds and needed constant care. He had 2 colostomy bags on the front of his stomach and some 300 to 400 stitches on the inside of him. He eventually recovered, got back to wrestling weight, and got back in the ring. Harley wrestles sporadically over the next few years as his career winds down and he spends more time pursuing his other interests. But once again, tragedy strikes. He gets drunk on scotch and gets behind the wheel of his boat. There was a boat out in the lake that had its lights turned off. And as he was coming around the cove, by the time he'd seen them, it was too late. He hit the boat and they all fell into the water. Harley pulls them over to shore. The cops show up and not only was Harley drunk, but he was also resisting arrest. Ivana files for divorce and gets a restraining order put in place. She claims the divorce was nasty. Apparently Harley was also cheating on his wife and threatened to kill her if she leaves him. He was also abusive towards her. Now, I don't know if any of that is true.
We weren't there, so we don't
know. Here's the thing. I understand that some wrestlers cheat on their wives. It's a running theme here on Darkside of the Ring.
Yeah, pretty much.
But after the way he lost his first wife, I can't imagine him cheating on the second one or being abusive to the second one. Like I said, I don't know for sure. It's just hard for me to imagine. I'm not saying it's a lie. Divorced from his wife, Harley faces another challenge when a lawsuit from his boating accident threatens to wipe out everything he has left. The woman in the other boat suffered 2 broken legs. 2 years later in court, she's still in a wheelchair and asked for $10 million in damages. She ended up being awarded $250,000 because Harley was intoxicated. It was all the money Harley had to his name.
I have no sympathy. Do you?
A little bit. I'll tell you why. It was at night and the lights were turned off on her boat.
But he was also drunk off of scotch.
He was. He was definitely drunk, but here's the thing. Drunk or sober, you can't see a boat if its lights are turned off. Even if you're sober, you couldn't catch that. So that would be my argument. Even if you're drunk off your ass or sober as a priest on Sunday, you're not going to be able to see a boat at night when its lights are on. That's why you have lights in the first place. If I'm a judge, that's going to be my question. Why were your lights turned off? Did you have a flare gun? Did you wait for help? Or did you have your lights turned off for a different reason? Were y'all fucking in the boat? And you wanted the lights turned off so Coast Guard wouldn't see you? So that's why I don't have sympathy. I mean, obviously, you know, Harley should not be driving drunk on a boat. You shouldn't be drunk driving anything. A car, a boat, fucking scooter, whatever. You should not be drinking and boating. I'm aware of that. Harley's not off the hook for that. But they had their lights turned off at night. So I don't think she deserved all the money that Harley had to his name. You suffered 2 broken legs and you're in a wheelchair. I'm sorry, but your lights should have been on.
Fair enough.
So no, I don't have sympathy. Both people are at fault. Now, if it was broad daylight and he was drunk and crashed into her, oh yeah, take every dime he's fucking got. Facing financial hardship for the first time in his long career, Harley returns to the wrestling world. He joins WCW and becomes a manager for Big Van Vader. Vader was an ex-football player who was used to coaches, and Harley was no nonsense and didn't take any shit, and had no problem teaching Vader and telling him what he was doing wrong.
I always like Big Van Vader's fucking entrance. He comes out with that huge ass thing. My God, that man was huge. Yeah. Vader was scary looking coming out of the ring.
Time! It's time! It's Vader time!
Didn't they try to call him the Mastodon or something like that?
Vince wanted to change his name to the Mastodon.
Jim Carter.
He said, it's fucking Vader! He's literally a world champion. He's a legend. Well, we can so he's a great big Mastodon. You don't change a legendary wrestler's name like that. It's like when Jim Herd wanted to change Ric Flair's name to Spartacus. After years of being Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Spartacus?
Yeah.
Spartacus?
That's what Flair said.
What the fuck kind of name is that?
So Harley Race is now in WCW. He's a manager, and he's able to make some money now.
Yeah.
He's trying to get all the money back that he lost because he went broke. But he can't wrestle anymore, so he now becomes a manager for Vader, and that helps him out. And I've seen him a couple times at WCW pay-per-view. He's a very good manager. Harley leaves WCW, but his next public appearance shocks even his closest friends.
Oh, yeah, this right here.
In 1998, he appears on Expose Pro Wrestling Secrets Revealed. They altered his voice a little bit, but not enough, and the silhouette clearly showed it was Harley Race being interviewed. Jack Briscoe was upset about it and asked Harley, why'd you do it? And he said, money, brother. Guys would get beat up for doing this, and normally the guy doing the beating would be Harley Race. But who are you going to get to beat up Harley Race? But he did this expose. And here's the thing. The funny thing about this expose, I actually remember watching this years ago.
I never seen it or never heard of it.
I did. When I was a kid.
Okay.
This came out and I saw it. And basically, I didn't know it was Harley Race though, because as a kid I didn't really know about Harley Race that well. I heard his name a couple times, but didn't know too much about him as a wrestler. But when I saw it, it literally exposes the business. It shows how the moves are done, exactly how they look. And again, people would ask Harley Race, why would you do this? You're literally the old school person. But he said, money. Harley Race lost everything. So he needed money any way that he could. And again, this is the thing about wrestlers. A lot of old school wrestlers don't like to expose the business. But if you pay them enough money, they'll do it. If you put enough money in their pocket to make it worth their while, they'll tell you everything you want to know about the business once they're out of it. Retired from the ring, Harley starts his own wrestling school where he imparts his knowledge to a new generation of talent. And in 2004, his long history in the business is honored with an induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. So he finally gets inducted to the Hall of Fame. And the students that came out of his school, Trevor Murdoch.
That was the definition of a hillbilly fucking cowboy. But with him and Lance Cade, right?
Yeah.
They were a decent fucking tag team.
Very good.
They were good. I was like, you know why? Because they weren't doing that spot monkey bullshit. I remember Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch had great matches with the Hardy Boys and all those guys. They were, what, a 3 to 4 time tag team champions?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were good.
They were very good.
Oh, hell yeah. I remember it was like, they were countries and motherfuckers. You know, Lance Cade's from, what, Canada?
Yeah. That's because Trevor Murdoch was more country than Lance.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah.
And that's why Trevor Murdoch, he ended up going to NWA.
Yeah.
And becoming the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And Trevor Murdoch was part of Cornette leaving NWA as a commentator.
Yeah.
Because he made that infamous joke that pissed off the entire wrestling world.
What joke was
He
that?
said, Trevor Murdoch is so tough, he could strap a bucket of chicken to the back of a scooter and ride it across Ethiopia.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And here's the thing.
That's...
the reason... Now Cornette tried to defend himself with this joke by saying he was trying to do a joke about starvation, how they're starving people in Ethiopia or starving people in Africa. But he didn't put the fact that it was black people and chicken together in the same sentence. And you would think a liberal like Jim Cornette, as liberal as this motherfucker is,
God, he's so liberal.
So far to the left he ought to work for NASCAR. This motherfucker, you would think, would know not to make a stupid joke like that.
But he didn't.
But that's Cornette's problem. He's very, very liberal, yet doesn't like political correctness. Even though you vote for the people that endorse it. You're literally feeding the trolls, Corny. You're feeding the trolls.
We love you, Corny, but come on, dude. You're better than that, man.
Even I was like, dude, you really didn't make that connection? I made that connection almost instantly. That's why a lot of times if Trevor Murdoch's name gets mentioned, you may hear Gator on a classic pay-per-view who would go, you know, Mr. Richard Reddit, Trevor Murdoch is so tough. And I'm going to say, no, shut him up. So if you ever hear that joke, that's why I'm cutting him off. Ace Steel, who's the guy that was with CM Punk in the Brawl Out, the one that bit Kenny's face. Superstar Steve, Brian Breaker, John Webb, Jason Jones, Curtis Deerling, Tommaso Ciampa. Yes, from DIY. No one will survive. And Jack Gamble. So these were the guys who graduated from Harley Race's school that went on to do things in the business. In 2019, after years of battling various ailments, including lung cancer, the wrestling world awakens to the news that Harley Race has died. He was 76 years old. He is considered one of the greatest champions and wrestlers of all time. But like most wrestlers, he wasn't a family man. He is considered the toughest wrestler of all time.
It makes sense right there. Yeah, Harley was always considered down one of the greatest heels of all time. Because, like I said, in his promos, you never see him. He's always like this.
Because tough guys back then, men back then didn't show emotion like that. They just did. Back then, it was not okay to be a man with emotions and feelings. So you very seldom showed them to anybody. At best, maybe your wife might see them, but most of the time, you did not show emotion as a guy. Because you were trained to be the strong guy. You were trained to be the guy who had to protect the family and everything else. There's a lot of traditions that didn't require men to be emotional. You needed to be masculine and tough and brave. And if you had kids, you had to toughen them to come up in the world like that. Like now, we're a little more open to guys being emotional sometimes.
Sometimes.
You know, like it's okay in some cases. And, you know, now you're taking that stuff more seriously. so, you know, guys don't lose their minds and become mentally unstable. If you bottle up your emotions enough, you're going to snap.
True.
Because it eventually will eat away at you. So my point is, he came from that era, and he is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. That, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap up this episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the Ring. Zach, as always, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us, and make sure you guys tune in next week. I'll be riding solo for this episode. I'm going to be all by myself as we dive into one of the most fucked up people in all of professional wrestling. A man who's considered to be the greatest wrestler you've never heard of. We're going to be talking about Chris Colt. Welcome to my nightmare. Next week here on the Boochcast. So make sure you guys follow us on all of our podcast platforms. The links down in the description box below. Follow us on social media platforms. The links down in the description box below. You guys can also support the Boochcast. Go to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/the Boochcast/support. That link is down in the description box below. And of course, as always, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the Ring, as well as other additional Boochcast YouTube content. We'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, pizza baby!